This is a tutorial on paraphrasing. When you paraphrase, you express the same message in different words. But that can be tough because an effective paraphrase keeps the same core meaning as the original passage, but the meaning is expressed in your own personal voice. It sounds like you. Let's look at an example. Is this an effective paraphrase? The original text that I'm trying to paraphrase is on the left, and my attempt at a paraphrase is on the right. So the original reads, "In early 19th century England, a good way to get rid of your husband was with arsenic." My paraphrase reads, "In the beginning of the 19th century in England, a good way to get rid of your husband was with arsenic." Is this an effective paraphrase? Nope, but why not? Look closely at what's really been changed. That's right. Only the first part of the sentence has been changed, so this would be considered plagiarism. If you only change the original in one or more of these ways, it is still considered plagiarism. If you replace a few words with other words, it's still plagiarism. If you insert new words into the same sentence structure as the original, it's still plagiarism. And if you only change the order of the sentence, it is still considered plagiarism. So look at that last example again. What's been changed in my paraphrase? All I changed was the word early to the phrase in the beginning of. So this is an example of only replacing a few words with other words. Here's another example. The same original text on the left and my new paraphrase on the right. My new paraphrase reads, "In the early 1800s in England, a good way to kill your husband was with arsenic." So I've made some good changes here. The first in red is to change early 19th century to in the early 1800s. And then in green, I changed the phrase get rid of to the word kill. But look at the rest of the words in black. They sit in the exact same format as before. So this is an example of putting new words into the same sentence structure as the original. And this is plagiarism. Here's our final example. Original on the left, paraphrase on the right. My paraphrase reads, "A good way to get rid of your husband in early 19th century England was with arsenic." So by now you know enough to be sure that this is plagiarism. But can you explain why? Look closely at the text. What change have I actually made? Right, I've simply rearranged the order of the sentence. I've taken a phrase from the middle of the sentence and I've put it at the beginning of the sentence. So this is an example of changing only the sentence order. Once again, we have plagiarism. So what is an effective way to paraphrase this sentence? Well, my paraphrase reads, "The early 19th century English favored arsenic poison as a method by which to eliminate their husbands." So that sounds a little bit like me. Your paraphrase should sound a little bit more like you. There are many effective ways to paraphrase every sentence. Paraphrasing means to put an author's ideas into your own words. What are some ways you can do that? Well, you can combine related ideas beneath a larger umbrella idea. You can eliminate wordiness, get rid of those extra words that aren't doing much work for the sentence. You can use synonyms, words with almost the same meaning. But look those synonyms up. Be sure they work in your sentence. And if you come across a unique word or phrase that seems particularly important to the meaning of your sentence, you can keep that word or phrase by putting it in quotation marks. Sometimes paraphrasing is tricky. When you're paraphrasing someone else's opinion, you have to use words that make this clear to your reader. Here's an example. This original text, by the way, is from the same article as the sentence about arsenic. And that article is actually a book review. So in this book review, the author says, "It must be said that some of her digressions are more interesting than her story." When this author says her digressions and her main story, the word her is referring to the author of the book that she is reviewing. So can you find opinion in this text? Is the book reviewer making a judgment? Yes, she is. She's telling us that in the book, the author goes off on tangents or digressions, and that those tangents are more interesting to her than the main topic of the book. That's certainly a judgment. So when we're paraphrasing, we need to let our readers know that this is not our judgment, but the book reviewer's judgment. The book reviewer is named Joan Acocella. I went back to the article to find this information before I started writing my paraphrase. Now that I have the information, I can begin to write. And I wrote, Joan Acocella warns readers that the main story of the book is sometimes not as engaging as the author's tangents. So it ends up being a little bit longer than the original text, but I have made it clear that the opinion is not my own. Here are some phrases to use when you need to make it clear that an opinion belongs to the author of your text and not to you. You can say things like the author suggests, or the editor states, or the author's claim, or the publishers insist that. So why do we want you to paraphrase? Two main reasons. First, to avoid plagiarizing, which can get you into trouble and is disrespectful to the author of the original text. Second, to help you better understand what you are reading. Before you can effectively paraphrase anything, you have to really understand its meaning. So when we ask you to paraphrase a text, we are asking you to really understand that text. And if you don't, you have a bit of work to do, like looking up words or asking teammates to help you make sense of something. Then by the time you are able to write your paraphrase, you have a deeper understanding of what that text actually means. That's the real value of paraphrasing. But where do you begin? I like to begin with unique wording. Why? Because the unique words in a passage are what gives that passage its character. They are what make it sound like a specific person's voice. And you want to paraphrase in a way that sounds like your voice. So first, identify the most unique words or phrase in the passage. Look at the sentence in the box on the left. The word digressions is clearly the most unique. We're used to seeing words like must and said and some and interesting and main, but the word digression stands out here. We don't see that word very often. So second, we need to make sure we understand that wording. So we need to look up digressions and figure out what it means. Then third, we need to go about changing the wording so it sounds more like the way we would say it. Once we've done that, we are well on our way to an effective paraphrase. Remember, an effective paraphrase restates the original passage in your own words, makes it clear when someone else's opinion is in the mix, and retains the core meaning of the original passage. And a final note, even paraphrasing requires that you cite your source.